Hello! I've been waiting for you. Come right on in and be comfortable. Welcome to the 26th Annual Santa Paula Theater Center GhostWalk. 2020's been a very unusual year, and it's a special Ghost Walk. It's our first virtual Ghost Walk. So the difference is you're not going to walk at all. You're going to do the sit down, and we will come to you. Well, we won't be walking either. But then, of course, we never have we? So, I'd like to ask, does anybody remember me? No, I thought not. My stage name is Klaus von Schweikert. But my real name was Chester Dinkle. I was quite well known for a string of horror musicals I did, all of them completely forgettable. But then fortune smiled on me, and I was cast in the lead role of Killer Dolls of Broadway, 1920. Oh, well, it was a huge hit, and it put me right on the map. Now, I became so popular that the newspaper published a story. Now, you see, this was at the very beginning of the fad for young ladies to carry their boudoir dolls, or in America commonly called bed dolls, everywhere with them. They dressed them up in outfits to match their own and took them to parties. They took them on dates. They took them on their honeymoons. They took them to bed, and God knows where else. Well, the newspapers published a story about Miss Mary Pickford, who said she had seen my performance so many times, she decided to have a boudoir doll made in her own costume and image, and a human hair wig of her own hair. Well, that was quite a gift. And then they started coming. Oh, just a few at first, but then I got 2 more treasures. The world-famous Dolly sisters. Oh, those scandalous girls. Oh, did you ever see them in Paris? Oh, my goodness. Well, they sent me 2 dolls that they had used in their cabaret act. Of course, they were naked as jaybirds. Oh, those naughty girls. Now, I should have been showing you these dolls when I was telling them about them, but it's taken so much time here now. I just want to show you. Oh, here's Mary. Oh, sorry, dear. Sorry. Oh, goodness. Look at her precious. Oh, and the Dolly sisters, of course. As I said, they were naked as jaybirds, but I made them costumes from the jabots of my old dressing gowns. And then as chance would have it, young men started sending me things too. Teddy bears. Now, I have to admit, I liked it. I've always been very happy to be one of those people that everybody likes. And so I was grateful for the collections that were coming my way from the gentlemen folk. Yes, their teddy bears, they were all very cuddly. But some of the larger animals were a little bit off-putting. Oh, and then on that table back in the corner, I have a large collection of the nutcrackers they used to send me. Some of them quite big. Well, this went on and on and on until my family was just so large. It was becoming an issue for me. I had to clean the house so often, and I'll use the carpet sweeper here. Sorry, girls, I'll be done in just a moment. I have to slave away constantly for this many people in my little place. Can we take a break now? Well, now, let's see what other tales of woe we have on the docket for tonight's performance. Now, yes, some of you probably wanted to be a fireman when you were young, didn't you? Oh my, do we have to say fire person now? I don't know, it's so hard keeping up with you mortals. This next story is titled Bertha, and it's the tale of a fire truck and a fiery red woman by the same name, Bertha. You'll want to pay special attention to this story. I hear it's really hot.
Look at these babies! Oh, yeah! Well, howdy there, folks. You must be the new volunteer fire crew we've been waiting for. Captain, the new crew's here. Well, listen, these engines may be a little worse for wear, but when things get hopping hot, they can still roll out and put a good stream of water on. Why, they're so valuable, the Ventura County Fire Department recently purchased these engines and stationed them out here just in case. Well, let me introduce you to them. This one here is our 1954 Mac. And when things got hot, it can still roll up those hills better than some of those newer engines can. But this, honey, here, this is the engine I broke out on. It's a 1923 Model 760 triple combination fire engine, hose, and chemical pump. She's sleek, she's beautiful, and her name's Bertha. And how she got that name is kind of my story. You see, most firehouses back in 1923 still preferred the more dependable horse-drawn fire apparatus. Why, something was always going wrong with these newfangled machines. Hard to get along with and finicky, just like a certain woman around town. Now, the Santa Paula Fire Department was formed in 1922, just several days after the devastating Petrolia Hotel fire devastated a good portion of Main Street there in Santa Paula. A group of community-minded folks got together and formed the Santa Paula Volunteer Fire Department, and I proudly joined their ranks. It was an honor to serve, and it did have its perks. Why, the town people thought us firemen could do no wrong, and the ladies in town called us their fire laddies. They thought we could do no, those single women thought we could do no wrong, and we saw no reason to correct them, if you know what I mean. Everything was fine till one Bertha Ramos moved into town. Oh, she was a good-looking woman. She filled out a dress in a most spectacular fashion. All the ladies in town loathed and hated her. Why? Because every man in town secretly wished to catch her eye. Well, she started hanging around the firehouse here with us firemen. And to impress her, we named our new engine Bertha after her. Oh, she was impressed, all right. So impressed she went through those firemen like wildfire goes through brush on a hot east windy day. Woo-hoo! Well, now, she didn't stay too hopping hot with any one fireman for too long. Still, it took her a while to get around to me. I didn't mind all that much. You see, it started innocently enough. First, she called me and said, would I come over and check out her chimney? Thought it was plugged up. I got over there and she says, oh, I'm so happy there's a brave young man like you to protect a poor innocent gal like me. And another time, there was a brush fire away up in the hills. And she wanted me to come over. Said, oh, won't you come over and wet down my wood pile? I'm so afraid an ember from that there fire might catch my wood stack on fire. Well, I was getting pretty fed up doing all these chores for her. Now, all I really wanted was, but every time I'd get my hackles up, she'd bat those big blue eyes of hers and move those shoulders in a particular fashion, and I'd go right back to the chore I was on doing. Well, the final straw come from me when she called me late at night. Late at night, I mind you, said her cat was stuck up a tree. You know, I bet you that cat climbed that tree just to get away from that woman. I said, Bertha, have you ever seen a cat stuck up in a tree? No, she said. Well, I reckon your cat will come on down too. Oh, she flew off the handle, went into hysterical outrage, said she would never speak to me again unless I come right over there and help her get her cat out of the tree. I knew it was a stupid thing to do, but what could I do? I went over there, and sure enough, I got there, and way up high in this old oak tree is this scrawny little tabby cat. She was crying and carrying on, folks. I shimmied on up that tree, got up there, and I reached out and I grabbed that scrawny little cat by the nape of its neck. And as I was coming down, I guess I stepped on an old rotten branch, because the last thing I remember hearing was a loud crack. Well, now I know what you're thinking, but let me tell you two things. First, that tabby cat survived the fall. And second, so did I. Why, I landed on my feet just like that cat. And I'm proud to say that no Santa Paula volunteer fireman ever died while on the line of duty, me included. And I'd like to thank those brave men and women who risked their lives and their health to heed the call.
26, engine 1. Engine 2, respond.
Captain, that's us! That's us! Station 26 East, Capital R, that's us! You folks, grab your turnout gears. I'll meet you outside. Let's get it rolling! Woo! Woo!
Well, I guess the moral of that story is be careful of the women you keep company with. You might get burned. Oh well, it's time to move on to our next story. I hear it's time for some of you to go to bed. That cuts me to the bone. I suggest you stay up and listen to this story. It's called Josie's Tale.
Hello. So sorry to bother you, but would you mind stopping for just a minute and let me talk to you? You see, I get so tired of being alone all the time. I saw you looking at the sign. The house is for sale. You know, seems like no one ever comes up here anymore. But people who come up here and look at houses for sale, well, they seem to have lots of time to talk. My name is Josie Dawson. Well, perhaps you know my husband, Jess Dawson. He used to go down to town more than me. Are you a businessman? Do you know my husband, Jess? He's kind of tall and good looking, and he's new to the area. No? Well, it don't matter. It don't matter at all. I'm just glad you're here. Why don't you come up on this porch? Come on up this porch. You can sit in this chair right over here if you will. Come on. You can sit right there. I'll just sit right over here and maybe we could have a little talk. Yep, we moved up here in October 1927. It took all the money that we had in the world and we bought this little place up in Wheeler Canyon. Now, when it was time to buy things for the farm, like a tractor and some chickens and some seeds, well, my husband, Jess, decided that he'd better take a job temporarily working for the oil companies over in Taft. Well, I didn't want him to go. See, believe it or not, as old as I am, I had never lived alone before in my life, and I was scared. But no matter how much I begged and pleaded and screamed and hollered and even once or twice played dead, he still left. Now you may think that living up here all secluded in this house with this big old tree and the babbling brook and the deer and the rabbits and coyotes and foxes and snakes is romantic. But it's not. And it is especially not if you don't know your neighbors and they don't especially care to know you. Well, I didn't like it. I didn't like it one bit. So I started pretending I weren't really alone. I'd pretend that Jess had just gone to work every day and that at night he was going to come home. And after a while, I even started making dinners for him. I'd set the table real nice with a tablecloth and napkins and flowers and all. And then I'd just sit. I'd just sit and wait. Now, when he didn't come home after a while, I'd tell myself, why, he must have gotten held up at work or something for some really good reason. And then I'd just pack up his dinner and I'd go to bed. Yeah. This kind of strange part, you see, I couldn't go to sleep until I pretended I could hear Jess in the kitchen eating or in the other room smoking his pipe. Sometimes it was so real I could even smell his smoke. Now, does that sound crazy to you? Well, just when I thought it couldn't get any worse, it started to rain. And it rained, and it rained, and it rained. The sound of the rain on the rooftop near about drove me crazy. And the fields all around the house started filling up with water. And I wasn't really afraid of the water because, you know, the house is on a rise. But all those things that lived down in the fields, they started making their way up to higher ground, namely this house. So after a while, I had lots of company. I just can't say it was much of a comfort. I decided I had better do something. So I put on my rain boots and I put on my rain gear and I started walking in the rain towards town. The road had become a creek and it had things like potholes and stones, and every now and then a snake just kind of slid across the road. But I finally made it to town, and I went to the hardware store and I asked the man behind the counter if he had any poison he could sell me. And he said, "Why, no, ma'am, we're all sold out." I guess that other people in town had been having the same problem as I was. And then he said, "Why don't you ask some of your friends if they have any poison they have left over? Maybe they could give you some." Well, I didn't have any friends. I didn't know anybody else. So I put back on my rain gear and I headed back home. All the time I'd been going, it had been raining and the road had become a small river, and if I had stopped for even 1 minute, I wouldn't have made it home. It was that bad. And I got here and the house was cold and it was dark, so I went to the woodshed to get some wood, but there weren't any. I hadn't cut it. So I came back into the house and I started piling on all the clothes that I had, but it seemed like the more clothes I put on, the colder I got. I guess I'd gotten a chill as I was walking in the rain for so long. So I said, well, I just go to bed. I just go to bed. I put every blanket I had on the bed, and then I crawled in. The covers were so heavy, I had to push and push and push my legs down to the bottom of the bed. And then I had to pull and pull and pull them up to my neck. And I just laid there. And I shivered. Oh, it was so cold. But I guess after a while I must have gone to sleep because I was dreaming that Jess had come home. And he was lying in the bed next to me. And it was so nice and so warm, just the way it used to be. And then he started breathing on the back of my neck, and I said, "Oh, Jess, you've grown a mustache." And then he started tickling the backs of my legs, and I said, "No, Jess, please stop. Now, come on. You gotta leave me alone because I'm sick and I don't feel good, Jess. Please leave me alone." But he didn't. He just started pinching me, started pinching my legs and pinching my buttocks, and I sat up in bed and said, "Jess, leave me alone. I'm sick now." But Jess wasn't there. But all around me, the covers were moving. And I pulled those covers back, and it was rats, and they were everywhere. And I jumped out of bed, and I started stomping them, kicking them across the room, and I ran around the bed. And the next thing I know, I'm up on the ceiling, and I'm looking down at myself, and I'm on the bed, and I'm dead. I don't even know how I died. It could have been the illness, or it could have been my old age, or it could have been bad cooking, or it could have been the rats. I don't know. All I know is that it was a terrible way to die. Just terrible. know that you're looking at that for sale sign, and I know you're thinking about buying this house, but I'm here to tell you, if you can't afford it, don't buy it. It will not bring you happiness. I thank you for stopping to talk to me. But if you see my husband, Jess, would you please tell him I'd like a word with him?
Well, now, doesn't that tale just give you the heebie-jeebies? I told you she was sweet. But I think perhaps the rats would say it's just a matter of taste. Everything was going fine. But then she came. That one was different from the rest. That one was different from the rest. She wasn't a boudoir doll. She came anonymously in a carton, just marked artist made. Now the next story is called Poncho Barnes. Now you might think this is a story about a man, but you would be wrong. It's the story of a strong woman. Oh, and you know what they say about strong women? Nobody loves strong women. But oh my, how a strong woman can love. I updated that a little for you.
So, you're my new students, Kind of a motley ragtag lot, aren't you? Well, that's okay. I like a challenge. And I do appreciate what you're doing for the war effort. We can use all the pilots we can get. Oh, and no need to call me Mrs. Barnes. Poncho is just fine. Poncho Barnes. Has a ring to it, doesn't it? Well, if you didn't know already, I got the name Poncho from a friend of mine when we were traveling through Mexico. I was masquerading as a man at the time for safety, and I was more than happy to swap in my birth name, Florence. Anyway, no need to be intimidated by my name and reputation. You have the advantage of knowing quite a bit about me, but on the other hand, I don't know it. What do you mean you don't know who I am? You really are wet behind the ears, huh? You ever hear of Amelia Earhart? Well, I'm not her, but I beat her speed record in 1930. I always was a rebel, headstrong, independent, out of place in my wealthy Pasadena family. They arranged a marriage for me to Reverend Barnes. Mostly to tame me, I imagine. Talk about oil and water. The Reverend thought my flying was inappropriate and gave me an ultimatum. Him or the flying? You know how easy it is to drown out a Sunday sermon with a biplane? It was like I was reborn at age 27. The joy, the thrill, the speed. I did everything from daredevil movie stunts to testing to barnstorming. Say, you ever crewed on a tramp steamer? I highly recommend it. Of course, if I did it again, this time I'd avoid being shot at and make sure it's not carrying illegal cargo. I've braved the jungle and guerrilla soldiers in South America, murderers and drunks in Mexico, not to mention 3 other marriages. I even flew for Union Oil. You have heard of Union Oil. Now they were some good parties. Oh, and I counted among my friends and acquaintances George Patton Jr., Howard Hughes, Will Rogers. I drank bootleg whiskey and played craps. But mostly I just could never pass up a dare. And nothing came close to the sheer exhilaration of flying. It was dangerous. I knew that going in. Lost a lot of friends to the skies. In fact, in the first women's intercontinental race, I came in 3rd after Amelia Earhart. You remember her. But not before I lost my friend and bunkmate, Marvel Grossen. I was right behind her when I saw her plane catch fire, plummet to the ground, and explode. So, sure, it was dangerous, but regular life bored me to tears. And Santa Paula Airport always brings back memories. I haven't just taught flying here, you know. There were these short races called Tom Thumb Derbies. There was this one. The course was Long Beach to Santa Paula and back. There was a solid bank of fog from Santa Paula to Santa Monica that damn near downed half the pilots, but not me. There I was, sailing along in my fast, sleek Travel Air mystery ship, and just when I had Cloverfield in my sight, just when I was certain I had the race in my hand, I started to lose airspeed. The motor was sputtering, missing. I held my breath and leaned forward as if to coax it along more. Sputtering, and then the engine cut out completely. Within seconds, the nose of my mystery ship was heading downwards. I reached for my lucky snuff box, the one my grandfather gave me with a hot air balloon on it. I clutched it tightly and gave it a kiss. I can't really tell you much more about it, except it ended pretty quickly. The engine started up again. I slided right in and took first place. Well, hell, you didn't think I died there, did you? I was called the best in the West by some. Best women, of course. And I won the next Santa Monica, Santa Paula race too, and too many others to mention. Oh, say, I sure hope I haven't put you off wanting to fly. So now, you're probably wondering just how I did die. No, it wasn't the 4 marriages that killed me. Good guess, though. Doing aerobatics like barrel rolls? No. Barnstorming? Hardly no. I broke all the rules. And what blaze of glory did I go out in? I died of old age. But I had one hell of a life up until then. Oh, well, I've got another class coming in soon. You did a real good job. I think I've got some real fine pilots in the making here. So just let me leave you with a tip. Take chances. And go for broke. Because if you're not living dangerously, you might as well be dead.
Well, what do you think of that? Pretty impressive, I would say. Although I did hear she was Mostly winging it. Get it? Winging it? Hello? Anyone out there? Our next story is called Saving Grace. It's the story of a young woman who found solace in, of all things, a tree. But not just any tree. This was a very special tree. So without further ado, I will make like a tree and leap. Get it? I said leap instead of tree. Hello?
It's not your treasured landmark, it's mine. I was there when it was planted, and I'm still there. It was my papa, Ebenezer Orne, who planted that tree in the corner of our garden. He planted it on July 4th, 1879, to celebrate the birth of my little sister, Cecile. My older sister Lizzie and I watched him plant it. We gave that tree its first drink of water from a milk can. So it's my tree, and I love it. I always cough when I get agitated, and I apologize for the ruckus. Mama would have been most annoyed if her little Gracie had made such a scene in public. Good evening. I am Miss Grace Gertrude Orne, and I want to tell you why I know that my tree is more than just another 125-year-old tree. A stranger in town gave Papa the seeds. I was there when he said he chose Papa because we have the most beautiful garden in Santa Paula. It was chock full of every kind of flower and fruit tree you can imagine. He was sure if anyone would grow it, Papa could. Man, he never gave his name. Told us not to plant it too near the house because it might get to be a pretty big tree and it grew very fast. He told Papa that all he knew was that it was some kind of fig tree from Australia. And that according to legend, it had magical healing powers. Papa thanked him for the seeds and planted it. I helped him dig the hole and he helped me carry the milk can to water it. I could hardly wait to tell Lizzie about the magical seed we planted. And you see, Lizzie was not just my older sister. She was my best and dearest friend. I adored her because she was everything I wasn't. She was strong and healthy and so pretty. I was a puny weakling and never much to look at. Mama said I was just born too early. I was always catching something or just getting over it. Lizzie took a great interest in my story, and every day we'd go to see if it had sprouted. And finally, after days of checking, the sprout had popped up. With the hot sun and our daily attentions, it took off like the magic beanstalk in Jack's story. We named it Figgy. When school started, Lizzie was gone all day. I couldn't go for fear I'd catch something. So I began spending more and more time with Figgy, and I began feeling stronger. Soon I was skipping and jumping around. Oh, I felt truly wonderful every single day. As Figgy grew taller and stronger, so did I. Lizzie and I spent hours playing under it making mud figgy puddings. It wasn't long before we could sit on top of those funny roots that grew above the ground. We called them the tree's knees. Soon we were even dangling from the sturdier branches. How I loved my tree. But when I was 14, Papa sold the house and we moved out on a farm. How I hated to leave Figgy. It wasn't but days after we moved that I began becoming weaker and weaker and catching colds again. How I missed being near Figgy. My parents were heartsick and the doctor had no remedy but complete bed rest. When Lizzie married and moved down south, I was totally alone and small. But when Lizzie's baby was due, Arrangements were made for me to go stay with her. I was terribly excited. On the way to the depot, the buggy passed by Figgy. How I wanted to jump off and hug my dear friend. But alas, there was no time. After Lizzie's boy was born, I caught a terrible cold that turned into pneumonia. I was dying. Late one night, I opened my eyes and saw Lizzie sitting by my bed. She was dozing in a rocking chair, her sleeping baby in her arms. I closed my eyes and I lapsed into a very deep, very dark slumber. Then I was awakened by a brilliant sunshine and the sound that a gentle breeze makes blowing through the leaves. I felt the warm embrace of healing rushing through my body. I opened my eyes and there was Figgy, mighty, beautiful, and welcoming. I laughed aloud and danced gaily about it. I was strong again. I was home, and I've never felt so good in my whole life. I vowed never to stray. Except, of course, for the occasional haunting to set the story straight about whose tree the Moreton Bay fig is. But I'll be back there for Halloween. Stop by for a treat. I'll be serving fig Newtons on the tree's knees.
Such a lovely story. Wouldn't you agree? And such a lovely young woman. I hear she's branching out. I ironed for them. I shopped and cooked for them. And, hey, you kids, I got your favorite, Wonder Bread. Builds fine bodies 12 ways. Well, this next story is titled The Dead Stand-Up. It's the story of a stand-up comedian named Vic Roneo. He's currently doing a gig on the Cloud Circuit. Opening for a cover band by the name of the Dead Corpses. Talk about your redundancies.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and give a warm, set-up-all welcome to Vic Romero.
Good evening, everybody, and what a beautiful evening it is, isn't it? Breathe in that night air. Tell me, I forget it. How does it feel? You people are killing me. Too late. That's right. I'm dead. I'm a dead person. You're probably wondering, how does a dead guy like me get into a place like this? It all goes back to one night. I was getting ready to go on at the Coconut Grove when my manager, he tells me, when you go out, take a look in the front row. So I come out on stage, I look down, and what do you know? Milton Berle! You don't know who that is? Come on, Uncle Milty, the king of Saturday night, chomping down on one of those big fat cigars of his? It's my big night, my lucky break in showbiz. Hey, I figure if Milty's gonna steal jokes, they may as well be my jokes. So, I'm getting ready to start my act. I look up into the spotlight. Then, all of a sudden, I'm seeing stars. No, literally. Then, I'm up there. Where'd everybody go? I couldn't have stunk that bad. I haven't even started yet. my big break. More like my last rites. You know, there's worse things in this world than being dead. Like that joke, for instance. So, this is my big comeback. Dead? Come back? Get it? Sure, a lot of comics have died on stage, but how many have actually died on stage?
Hey, you dog, get me another gin, will you?
I gotta admit, though, I shouldn't be surprised. Before I went to that big nightclub in the sky, my doctor had only given me 6 months to live. When I told him I couldn't pay his bill, he gave me another 6 months. Those are the jokes, ladies and gentlemen. I know you're out there. I can hear you breathing, which is more than I can say for myself. No, really, my doc is a great guy. I said to him, hey, doc, my leg hurts. What can I do? He said, limp.
Hey, come on, I asked for another gin already.
Is this microphone dead or is it me? Don't answer that. Actually, it's not too bad being dead. First of all, I can play any house I want, and I don't owe my agent a thing. That's right, we got agents up there. All out of work. That's why they call it heaven. But I gotta tell you, heaven is a tough house. The problem is up there, they got no sense of humor. Did you ever try to tell him a joke? Seriously? He's heard them all 1,000,000 times. Say what you want about heaven, it ain't a lot of laughs. For example, last week, God sneezed. I didn't know what to tell him. I guess I shouldn't complain. All the big names are up there now. Burl, Kenny Youngman, George Burns, Jack Benny. Not all comedians go to heaven, though. That Lenny Bruce, we don't see much of him. So anyway, what's a dead comic supposed to do to keep interest in, being dead? Me? I like to come down once in a while, ride the rails, visit some of the old clubs I used to play in, try some new material. Oh, you're thinking this being dead sounds like a pretty good gig, right? Yeah, sir, you're doing a really good imitation. I gotta say, though, it's not all peaches and cream. The thing is, you keep running into people up there. People that you spent your entire life trying to avoid. Like my brother-in-law. What a dope. He used to be a karate expert. Then he joined the army. The first time he saluted, he killed himself. Okay, you don't like that one? If I had blood, I'd blush.
What's the guy gotta do to get some service?
Then my wife shows up. I love her. I really do. But there's 2 times a man doesn't understand a woman. Before marriage and after marriage. And the afterlife? Don't ask. But honestly, I've been in love with the same woman for 39 years. And if my wife finds out, she'll kill me. Take my wife. Why not? She's available. I kid. But to be honest, folks, take it from a dead guy. You only get one shot in life. Live it up. Have fun. Have some laughs. You've been a great audience. I mean that. Now, before I go, I got a new theme song. You want to hear it?
Yeah, really.
I ain't got nobody. 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 Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Vic Romeo. Come back and see me sometime. I'll be here forever.
Vic Romeo, ladies and gentlemen. Vic Romeo.
Oh, baby, now I ain't got nobody, and there's nobody cares for me. Now why.
Well, there you have it then. I think we can agree that was DOA. All the same, I hear he's still killing it on the circuit. Folks are dying to see his act. Get it?
Well, howdy, folks. I'm the Lonesome Traveler. But most folks, they just call me Lonesome. Now, I hope that you're enjoying the program that we made available to you tonight. And if you are enjoying it, that maybe you'll see your way clear to giving us a small donation, or possibly even a large one, to help support us bringing this fine entertainment to you. We'd be mighty grateful if you did. Well, that's all I got to say, and I think it's time we get back to the show.
You know, this next story reminds me that back in my day I used to quite a rug. They said I was very light on my feet. Our next tale is a tale of desire and recompense. The tale of a young, lovely girl dancing on the edge. Quite literally, I might say.
I'm standing here calmly now that I'm a ghost. When I was human, that was not the case. Now that I am a ghost, I'm so much wiser. Had I known differently, what could I have done to prevent my gruesome, awful death? I could have never have prevented my death. It all seemed foreordained now. I danced myself to death. Death by cotillion. Death by waltz. Death by exploding dance card. Death by red shoes. My family picked the crops in the field near here. The only time I wore shoes was when I attended school. I had only one pair. When I went to school in the fall, my hands were calloused and rough. But my cheeks were bright and shiny, my hair glossy. The boys noticed. The amazing thing about the public education is that it's the great leveler. It brought me into the same classroom as the son of the owner of this fine mansion. While stooping in the fields, I would look up at the mansion. I dreamed dreams of dancing in the pavilion, waltzing in the moonlight. For just one night, I'd be rich and a lady. One day after school, my fate was sealed. The son of the owner of the mansion asked me to the ball. The ball! The annual ball that I had seen the lights of and heard the music of, and smelled the scent of the food of from my family's humble quarters next to the fields. I was going to the ball. The dress I could handle. My family sewed all of our clothes. The dancing was the problem. I could not dance, especially the kind of dances done at the mansion. What to do? The Amora, please help me. My Aunt Mora was part Irish and part Mexican, and I'm pretty sure part gypsy. She grew all of the herbs and cured all of the people near and far. I knew she could help me. I went to her vine-covered hut in my ball gown. I wanted to show her how much I had done for myself already. All I needed was the ability to dance. She turned me around to admire my gown. She played with my heart. Then she led me into the darkened room and over to the trunk in the corner. She lifted the lid. I dared not look inside. Out came her hands, holding the red shoes. "These shoes," she said, "will make you dance like a ballerina. These shoes will make you the belle of the ball. These shoes are magical. The magic is powerful and must be obeyed. There is danger in not obeying the magic. You may wear these magic red shoes for one night only. You may wear these red shoes for one night only and dance in the arms of the son of the owner of the mansion and prove that you are worthy of the invitation to the ball. These shoes will dance for you until midnight. At midnight, your dance must end. I put the shoes on the night of the ball. I danced as the music started. I danced and danced and danced. Time flew by as my feet flew across the dance floor. At midnight, the small orchestra played the last waltz. As they began packing up their instruments, I continued to whirl around and around. As everyone began thanking their hosts and leaving, people were saying, "You must really love to dance. You can't stop." They did not know how true those words were. My date offered to walk me home. I twirled around and around as we walked out the big door of the mansion. The grandfather clock in the hall had struck 12 long ago. As I danced and danced, I began to remember that my Tia Mora had warned me to take the shoes off before midnight. I was dancing at a ball, my first real ball. I'd lost all track of time. It was late. I was exhausted from dancing for hours. My feet continued to move in the red shoes. They began to move faster and faster. As the minutes after midnight ticked away, my feet moved under the power of the red shoes. My date called after me, but my feet carried me faster and faster out through the field. I was whirling and whirling under the full moon. I was gasping for breath. My body was burning with pain still. I danced on. The next morning, they found my body miles away. I was buried in the family cemetery near here. The undertaker gave up on trying to take the shoes from my feet. They had become part of me. Now that I am a ghost, I have some control over the red shoes. Would any of you girls like to borrow my red shoes? Just meet me at my grave on the full moon of October. Will you be able to remember Tia Mora's warning?
Well, now, wasn't that a tragic story? I guess you might say she wasn't able to step up to the challenge. My dear Colette, thank you so very much for the lovely boudoir doll. She is quite the smallest and most charming I have ever seen. That's good, because, my dear Colette, I have no more room for large ones. Thank you again, and best wishes in your travels, dear. And please remember me kindly. Your loving Chester. Yes. Hello, Sebastian. During the 1920s, Americans were into fads. The crazier, the better. Daredevil stunts were all the rage. Aviation was a new thing in the 20s, and it became the source of some of the most breathtaking stunts in a decade of breathtaking stunts. Often young women, wing walkers, they dangled from cables and ladders, and they hopped from one airplane to another. They did the Charleston at 3,000 feet. Anything for a thrill. One of the most famous of these wing walkers was Lillian Boyer, a waitress from Chicago. Lillian stepped on her first wing in 1921 and quickly became a national sensation. Enjoy this story titled The Fair Devil of the Air.
Very nice airport you have here. Very nice indeed. If I've ever been here to Santa Paula before, I don't recall. I've just seen so many airports. Of course, most of the time that I saw airports, it was from 3,000 feet in the air and hanging upside down. And you know what? From that perspective, they all more or less look alike. You might say I'm on tour. My very last tour. There was a day I'd have drawn a much bigger crowd, but that's okay. I had my day, and it was a long time ago. The 1920s, to be exact. Flying was brand new in the 20s, and everybody loved these daredevils of the air, and I was one of the top. The newspapers and newsreels called me the girl of nerve, or the aerial sensationalist, or the empress of the air. But my favorite was the fair devil of the air. Those newspaper people were creative. You've got to give them that. Everybody was talking about me and my Lillian Boyer's flying circus. I was the star attraction across the country and around the globe. Oh yes, I was a big shot. When I'd come into town for a show, they would have a car waiting for me. The public recognized me. I was a celebrity. And to think all I ever did was walk on the wings of a plane and hang by my teeth from a cable. She laughs at death, the newspapers would say. And I guess they were right, in a way. The thing was, I was just never afraid. Now, I don't know if it's because I lacked good sense or what, but I just never had any fear whatsoever. Now, mind you, I never left the ground without a prayer to God, and when I landed, thanked him. And Mr. Brock, of course. Mr. Billy Brock. He was my pilot and the best there ever was. And by my estimation, no other pilot was even half as good as he was. Most of our tricks were original and mostly Mr. Brock's ideas, but a few of my suggestions were worked up into stunts, such as hanging by one hand from the skid under the wing of his Curtiss Jenny. Now I thought that would be original. It became a very famous photograph of me, in fact. Oh, I did leaping from a speeding automobile onto a plane. I did jumping from one airplane to another. Oh, I did parachute drops and I did tricks on a ladder. But my favorite was standing with my feet under a strap while Mr. Brock looped that old Jenny, sometimes twice around. Oh, this one though was the doozy. Hanging by my teeth. We called this trick the breakaway. It was the surprise of the show. You see, when I would leave the cockpit, I would take with me this strong, thin cable and attach it to a strut. My mouthpiece was on it, and Mr. Brock could reel in the cable from the cockpit, but the spectators watching below didn't know that. Okay, so here's how it went. After I did a couple of tricks on the lower tip of the wing, I would put my mouthpiece in, then cross over the skid to the wing. Then I would do a couple of tricks there, hang there for a moment, then suddenly let go. That's when the oohs and ahs would start. The crowd thought I was falling. Then, when the cable would go taut, I would hang there under the wing, do a spread eagle and some other tricks. That's when Mr. Brock would lower down the ladder. I'd grab it, let go of my mouthpiece, and I'd do some more tricks on my way up. Oh, there were accidents. I guess some people called them close shaves, but I never thought much of them at the time. There was once, though, that I had this 3-day show and something happened each day of the show. On the first day, I was doing this parachute drop and I landed right in the seat of a Ferris wheel. The operator saw my troubles and he stopped it for me. On the second day, I was headed right for this tent. So I drew my shrouds to try to change direction, but the parachute turned inside out and I fell the last 50 feet or so. I broke my hip, my pelvis, several ribs, and fractured my spine. I lay there in the hospital for 2 whole months. And you know, all my bills were paid, but I never found out by whom. It wasn't me and it wasn't Mr. Brock. I assume it was the president of the fair. He kind of liked me. I know what you're thinking. Eventually the stunton caught up with me. But you'd be wrong. Oh, I knew lots of stunters who got killed, but not me. In 1926, the government outlawed the low-level flying that had made stunting such a sensation in the first place, so that ended that. No, the worst thing to ever happen to me was just losing every dollar I'd ever made in the crash of '29. I settled down and lived a quiet life, got married. Eventually, everybody forgot about stunting and the fair devil of the air. But when I was old and widowed, somebody down at the Aerospace Museum in San Diego found that I lived nearby and held some events in my honor. What do you know? I was famous again. They even let me take a ride in a biplane for my birthday. Oh, I wanted to get out there on the wings so badly, but they adamantly told me I could not. Between you and me, though, had it been my old plane, I'd have done it anyway. Well, I guess you could say that I often looked death right in the eye and won. Of course, nobody does it in the end, but I wasn't thinking that way when I hung by my teeth. I was young. It was the 20s. And it was just about the best fun a person could have. Yes, this is a very nice airport you have here indeed. I think I see a biplane over there with nobody attending to it, so if you'll pardon me, I feel like going on a little walk.
What a thrilling story! No, and a thrilling woman, too, if you catch my drift. She had a very fulfilling life. But now, of course, she's on another plane. You get it? She's on another plane? Well, I hope you do. Now, our final story of the evening is on the darker side. I suggest you send the kiddies to sleep or put them in the closet or whatever you do with them at night. And if you're a bit squeamish, you might want to end your viewing here. This is a tale of a ventriloquist and his dummy. But this dummy was no dummy, if you catch my meaning.
Coward! Shut up! Shut up! You can't go through with it. You haven't got the guts. Shut up! You can't tell me what to do. You'll never tell me what to do anymore. What are you doing here? I'm sorry. You're probably here for the late mass. I'm the one that shouldn't be here. But it's the only place that I could think of where I would be safe. This is a sanctuary, right? Actually, I'm glad that you're all here. I feel safer with you here. I don't like being alone. I hate being alone, even as a boy. I was an only child. And my parents, they didn't have much time for me, so I would talk to myself a lot and play with my imaginary friends, and then... Oh, you folks don't want to hear my problems. But it's him that I came to talk to ask for his help, for his forgiveness. Are any of you a priest? I feel I just want to confess to someone that's human, you know? I don't feel that I can leave here unless I've confessed what I've done. Do you mind if I tell all of you? When I was a boy, I found a small booklet in the public library. It showed me how to throw my voice. Well, it was easy for me, you know, after all those years of talking to myself. But now I had a purpose. I was going to be a ventriloquist. But I couldn't afford a figure. So I made Dan myself. Out of an old doll and some children's clothes, I carved his head out of a banister post that I found in the dump, and I made him a top hat out of cardboard and cloth, and I whittled him a fancy cane. He was your classic Vint figure, and I called him Dapper Dan. Everybody loved Dan and me and our act, and soon I had money and friends and women. But in any case, Dan was always my confidant and closest companion, and he still is. I could tell Dan anything. I could be who I was with Dan. I didn't have to pretend. It was the roaring 20s, and we played the vaudeville circuit, and we were quite well known. Derby and Dapper Dan were a sensation. Everyone loved Dan's jokes and enjoyed our witty banter. And the finale of our act was Dan singing Yankee Doodle Dandy, I drink out of a glass of water. The finale was, at the end of the song, 2 streams of water would come squirting out of Dan's ears. Oh, the crowd went crazy for that. Yeah. We had some great times back there, the two of us, Dan and me. Did you hear that? No, he can't get out. He doesn't exist anymore. He can't exist anymore. He's evil, and he made me do bad things. Oh, no, I don't want you to misunderstand. I'm not talking about Dan. No, I'm talking about one of my other figures. Dan would never hurt anyone. I was talking about Chauncey. Chauncey, he came later, after I married Sylvia, and after I found out that my wife was not a good woman. I didn't handle that well. No, I didn't handle that well at all. Chauncey, did you hear that? Those footsteps, those tiny footsteps? Chauncey hated Sylvia, but I told him that I still loved her and I wanted to forgive her. And then he said, "She's a harlot. You were a spineless worm letting her disrespect you like that. Shut up! And you let me out. No! You don't exist anymore, and you can't tell me what to do anymore either." She said you weren't a man, but a boy that liked to play with dolls for a living. Shut up! Please! So she got herself a real man. Someone that could satisfy all her needs. And you still loved her. I was doing you a favor. Shut up, please, shut up! He won't shut up! Why won't he stop talking? I never wanted to talk to Chauncey. I wanted to talk to Dapper Dan, my one true friend. But every time that I tried, his voice came through, and it was dark and evil. You need me. No. I don't have to listen to you anymore. You don't exist anymore. I'm here to do your dirty work. What do you mean? What are you gonna do? Oh, no. What are we gonna do? No, I can't. You're gonna take that knife and whittle it into her just like you whittled me. No. You're gonna take that knife and you're gonna carve that pretty smug smile right off her face. No, I won't, then you can't make me. Oh, yes, I can. So I did it. I killed Sylvia. No, he killed Sylvia. We killed Sylvia. And that's why I had to kill myself. It was the only way to stop him, to stop that voice. Oh, Lord, please forgive me, for we know not what we do.
Now that wasn't so bad, was it? That Benjamin character was a real doll, wasn't he? That will teach him not to toy with the dark side. Reminds me of when my Betsy Wetsy got fed up with my chatty Cathy and did her in. There came a time when it was the end. I had to sacrifice my family. I didn't want any of them to know. I made an appointment for a man to come one night and buy them all for one money, except for Mary Pickford and my dear Dolly sisters. But I wasn't able to tell them face to face, so I said, "Come to the bed with me. The man is coming to see us do a show, and Mary Pickford's going to watch also. And our bed is a boat, a showboat." And then I took sleeping pills. I took a whole bottle of them. and I lay down on the bed. Wait. Now I would like to thank all of you for attending the 2020 Ghost Walk. It's been a frightfully good time for me. Please make sure to tell all of your friends about the event, that they can find our broadcast schedule on our Santa Paula Theater Center and Ghost Walk Facebook pages. And if you're able, please make a donation. Every little bit helps during these difficult times. You can make your donation by visiting our website at santapaulatheatercenter.org or ghostwalk.com. On behalf of Ghost Walk and the Santa Paula Theater Center, I wish you a good night. And please, wear your mask. Keep safe and well. We don't want next year's Ghost Walk to be a reality show.
It's awfully hard to love someone when they don't care about you. Once I had a loving gal, sweeter than in this town.